Hey, what's up, family? This your boy, Pastor Pierce. I am back with another installment of Relational Intelligence by Dr. Dharius Daniels. Listen, I say this every single time, but this book is full of gems and nuggets that we can use for our daily lives as it relates to the people in our circle of influence. This is some good stuff. Well, listen. This part, we are still in part 2, dealing with discerning our relationships. This is the third part. This is the third category of that part. So we are with part 2, discerning our relationships. And this category 3 deals with clarification. He opens up talking about Jesus and how Jesus modeled the management of a relationship circle very clearly. And to do this, he used his disciples. We see this picture throughout all of the Gospels. His demonstration can offer clarity regarding who goes where in our lives. What better model to follow than Jesus Christ himself? So he mentions this designation, meaning where we put people. Designation is not a demotion. Just because you move people around to gain clarity as to where they fit, you are not demoting them out of your life. You're just simply putting them in their right place, and you need clarity, right, to do this. It says there is a way to clarify a person's role. In the case of Jesus, he made sure that both the others and the 12 always felt like the 3, even though they were not. So to do this, Dr. Dharius Daniels is talking about the 3, the 12, and the others. Okay, here it is. He says, this concept of the 3, the 12, and the others can be implicitly seen in Scripture. In Jesus's relationships, the 3 is a category that describes those who he was closest to and made the greatest investment in. These were people he had the most intimacy with. These were the people that he was the closest to. In fact, the 3 category is what historians would often call the inner circle. And these were people who Jesus very clearly managed his relationships with differently than the other disciples, the 12. So within that 12, within that discipleship group, he had a close-knit inner circle of 3. Then you have the others, which includes the 70 other disciples, as well as the other supporters of Jesus's ministry. These were people who worked and served with Jesus and who were under his influence. Think of people like, Mary, Martha, or Lazarus. So the others are people who were in Jesus's relational orbit. Some of these people might have been assignments. Some of them could have been associates. But these were people with whom Jesus had different degrees and different dimensions of relationship. Anyone who doesn't fit into the categories of the 3 or the 12, which in your life may be 5 or 15, that number isn't solid. But in this case, we're using 3 and 12. And those people that don't fit in that 3 or the 12 could be considered others. This inner circle of Jesus was like Peter, James, and John. Was made up of the men who, when Jesus went to the Mount of Transfiguration, like his highest point, traveled there with him. When he was there, he exposed them to his divinity, who he really was, the best of who he was, to these 3, Peter, James, and John. He did not take the other 9 of the 12 disciples. He did not take the people who would fall into the others category. Also, even when he went to Gethsemane, Jesus took Peter, James, and John. There, his humanity was exposed. The worst of his life experience was made plain. He did not take the other 9. nor did he take the others. Notice what happens here. At Jesus' highest point, when he exposed his divinity, he took the three, his inner circle, his closest. When he was at his lowest point, he took the three, Peter, James, and John. At his lowest human point, he took them with him. So what I'm saying here, your inner three or your close group, they should be able to accept you at your highest or your lowest. He writes this. He says, they experienced his highest point and his lowest point. They apparently were people who could handle this kind of information. These three were safe people. Jesus was showing us how to gain clarity in our relationships. We want relationships with people whose character, here it is, whose character reveals they are safe enough to handle us when we're at our highest and when we're at our lowest. Guys, I cannot express this enough. There have been times in my life, and maybe you can testify to this too, when we've put people in the wrong category and they've celebrated with us at our best, but minimized us when we're at our lowest. Don't miss that, man. If people can't hold you accountable when you're at your best and lift you up when you're at your lowest, they have no right to be in your inner circle. Let's take some time to clarify that, and we need to be sure that we have the right people in the right spaces. He goes forward to say, people who want watch this. People who want make permanent judgments about who you are based on temporary expressions of your emotions. Wow. So you're having a rough time, and maybe you may say something that you shouldn't say in that time, but your emotions are high and you was on the brain, out the mouth, and you just said it. You need people that will hold you accountable for what you said, but not make a permanent judgment on you because of what you said. Hey, sometimes we do and say things that we shouldn't say in the heat of the moment. So we need people around us that'll lift us up when we do these things. All right, here we go. We need people who don't define your whole book, your whole book off one chapter. These are people who have enough character to hold you up. They are loyal and trustworthy. They are loving enough to be exposed to you in the Garden of Gethsemane, your lowest part, and on the Mount of Transfiguration when you're at your highest. These people are not overly impressed, influenced, or carried away with us at our heights, but they're not overly disappointed with us at our lows. I love that. These are people we're safe enough to be vulnerable with. But here's another point that he makes. Our inner circle is not perfect, right? So we are not looking for people that are perfect in every season of life. They have the best advice all the time. These are simply people that have good character, can be trusted, they are loyal, and will hold you accountable regardless of where you are in your season of life. So, what does this say about the rest of the 12? You know, because you got 3, or the rest of the 9, right? They aren't in the inner circle, but they are not exactly in the outer circle either. So when you got the 12 disciples, you have Peter, James, and John. Those were Jesus' closest 3, but then you have the other 9. They are still in his close group, but they're not considered the 3, but they're not in the other category either. These were people Jesus did life with. He hung out with them. They helped him and he helped them. Darius Daniel says, I would call them associates in a sense. When someone is miscategorized or misaligned, when we haven't put people in their proper place in our lives, we will share inner circle information with outer circle people. A recipe for disaster. You don't want to share inner circle information with outer circle people, because what happens, they are out of the intimate circle and they share that info with other outside people, and the gossip, the information, whatever it is, spreads like a wildfire. Recipe for disaster. So what's the key in all of this, in gaining clarity, wanting clarification? Here it is. Discernment is the key. And discernment only comes when you are dwelling with the Holy One, God Himself. Here it is. All of these thoughts point back to the need for discernment when it comes to gaining clarity about the people we're in relationship with and where they belong in our lives. Discernment is the ability to judge well. It is an essential life skill. The inability to increase our discernment is a key reason we repeat mistakes. Sometimes we keep doing the same stuff over and over because we don't have good discernment, right? Here it is. There will be times when we will see that we've been placing a person in a certain category and that person never has met or no longer meets the criteria. For example, maybe at one point a person was safe, but they may have recently gone through some experiences that have changed some aspects of their character. Remember, all of this is based off character. Now they're in an unhealthy place and space. As a result, they may not be a safe person with whom to share our highs and lows. This means that a redesignation of their relationship category may be in order. I've been there, whether it's with family or former friends. Excuse me. At one point, their character was intact. Then they went through a season of trouble. I didn't disown them, but I saw how they started to move. Right? They were unhappy, so they began to gossip a whole lot. They began to share information about people that may have been true, but it wasn't my place to know these things, or it wasn't someone else's place to know what they were sharing, right? And so, and we often think that since we're close to these people that they won't do us like that. Well, it can be someone real close to you, a lifelong friend, a family member, even a sibling. Sometimes they find themselves in bad places and they begin to treat your information as if it's hot off the press and everyone needs to know it. So when you see that, you have to learn to realign and reposition not only them, but yourself too. Here it is. Please know that this isn't a demotion. We aren't passing judgment on the person, nor are we saying we are not worthy enough to be in this category. We are saying that at this present time, the person doesn't have the capacity to meet the criteria that the category calls for, and that's okay. We have to be okay with, number one, telling the truth to ourselves and to other people. Sometimes that calls for a conversation. Sometimes it doesn't, right? And so you have to love yourself enough and love them enough to gain clarity as to where you really are in this season of your life. Here it is. At times, a person doesn't come around to understanding why the relationship has changed. That has to be okay too. Sometimes we not only have to have patience, but we also have to draw boundaries. Listen, boundaries are important. And boundaries are needed for not only that person, but for yourself too. And sometimes it may come at a cost. You may hurt, they may hurt, but boundaries are for the best. You need boundaries to, watch this, to ensure you stay aligned with what God has called you to and what to do. You have to have boundaries so you can stay focused on your purpose and move forward with your life, and so they can move forward with theirs. Here it is. We have to say to ourselves, I don't have control over whether or not this person wants a different kind of relationship. We must be so committed to the best interest of both parties, ourselves and the other person, that if our realignment of the relationship creates a relationship they no longer want, we must respect their choice the same way we want them to respect ours. Listen, when you're honest with a person and it's coming from a sincere place, they won't always like it. You have to respect their decision not to like it, just like you want them to respect your new realignment. Right? And so sometimes it may cause pain. Sometimes it may cause joy. I don't know. But whatever it is, you have to gain clarity, and it comes from discernment. Also use your past experiences to help launch your wisdom and your thinking process. All right. So this has been the part on clarification. Next time we will deal with still part 2, but category 4. That's acceptance. Let's see what he says about that. Until next time, peace. I'm out.